Hey everybody, welcome to the Pet Food Puzzle Guy. I'm Glenn, and yes, you did read that thumbnail correctly. This video, I welcome everybody to watch it, but this is really for the fellow Christians out there on my channel. I know there's many of you that I've discovered, and I just wanted to share a Bible lesson story that's always meant a lot to me, especially this time of year with Thanksgiving right around the corner and Christmas coming. I just felt that I wanted to do it and share it with you. So there will be no nutrition message in this video. So if that's what you're here for, I'll catch you on the next video. But this is for those of you that enjoy the holidays on a spiritual level, and just something I want to share with my YouTube community. Okay, so enjoy, and happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Thanksgiving, all that good stuff. Love you guys. So I think if you're a believer, if you're a Christian, everybody's heard the story of Lazarus and Jesus raising him from the dead. And this lesson here, I just want to share a few insights. I have my Bible that I've had for many years. This is like a 8-pound Bible, and it's got about 40 years of personal notes in it. And I have taken it on mission trips everywhere. It's gone to the Amazon jungle. It has gone to Greece. It has gone to Pakistan, and it's kind of been all over the place. And a lot of personal notes in it, and I love it. So the story of Lazarus, everybody knows it. It's in chapter 11 of the book of John, Gospel of John. Now, a certain man was sick, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. And it was the Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was sick. And the sisters therefore sent to him, saying, Lord, behold, he whom you love is sick. But when Jesus heard it, he said, This sickness is not unto death, but for the glory of God, that the Son of God may be glorified by it. Now, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So I love that verse. We want to establish Jesus loved these three on a personal earthly level, not just as God. Uh, when therefore he heard that he was sick, he stayed then 2 days longer in the place where he was. Now, you could miss that. It comes up later, but he found out Lazarus was sick, and he says, It's not unto death. It's okay. But he waits 2 days before traveling to Lazarus. Really key, and it comes in later. I think the lesson is later for us. So let's go down to verse 11. This he said, and then after he said to them, Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go that I may awaken him out of sleep. The disciples therefore said to him, Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover. So the disciples, as usual, kind of not knowing what's going on here. Now, Jesus had spoken of his death, but he thought that he was speaking of literal sleep. They thought he was speaking of literal sleep. Then Jesus therefore said to them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him. So now Jesus declares, he's not even gotten there yet. He declares Lazarus is dead, but this is for your benefit. Okay, real interesting. Makes you wonder: does everything, even the worst of things, is there a benefit somehow for us that God is weaving into all this life that we live down here? So let me go back. So when Jesus came, he found that he had already been in the tomb 4 days. So Lazarus, it's been 4 days now. Now Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. Martha, therefore, when she heard that Jesus was coming, went to meet him, but Mary still sat in the house. Of course, if you understand Mary and Martha, Mary is the more emotional one, just totally committed and devoted to Jesus and loves him, and she just wears her emotions on her sleeve. Martha is the organization one. She's the let's get it done. There's things to be done. She's the one always rushing around, taking care of business kind of way. So, of course, it makes sense that Mary would just stay back at the house and Martha's going to run to meet Jesus. And this is key. All this was to get to this. Verse 21 of John chapter 11. Martha therefore said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. I think the key verse is verse 21, where Martha, in her, she's just thinks rationally, but yet she's going through the emotion of mourning, of losing her brother Lazarus, and she says, if you had been here, if only you had been here, Lord. And this is Thanksgiving. We're supposed to be thankful, to celebrate everything we have, and of course, then we have Christmas coming, the birth of Christ. So it's a wonderful time from Thanksgiving to Christmas. But for a lot of people, it's tough because they've lost loved ones. They're struggling through challenges. It's supposed to be a joyous time. Even Thanksgiving, you're supposed to feel so thankful, and you don't. Whatever you're going through, it's hard to say, oh, thank you, Lord, for this challenge or this trial. I'm sure it'll make a stronger, better person out of me. When you're going through it, that's probably not what's going through your head, and it's definitely not what's going through your heart. And so Martha says something so real that all of us, if you haven't said this in your life, hold on, because there probably is going to come a time where you're going to say, Lord, if you had only been there to do this. And you look at the situation, you look at what you're going through, you look at the suffering that either you're going through, or worse yet, people you love are going through, and you say, where is God? God is not here. If you were here, this wouldn't happen. And so I love that Martha, even the rational one, she's not like Mary, but even she can't help but say to Jesus, if only you'd been here. But it is interesting, and I don't know what to make of it, where she says, but even now, whatever you ask of God, you could do. Was she kind of like, I do know who you are. You could fix this. I don't want to read into that, but maybe it's there. But Jesus says to her in verse 23, your brother shall rise again. Now Martha said to him, I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day. So Martha, of course, is thinking, of that. And verse 25, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me shall live even if he dies. And anyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? So this is just good theology, and Martha, I think, is really good with theology at this point. And she says to him, yes, Lord, I have believed that you are the Christ, the Son of God, even he who comes into the world. And when she had said this, she went away and called Mary, her sister, saying secretly, the teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she arose quickly and was coming to him. Okay, the next couple of verses go on that Mary comes, and now everyone's there, and all the people are grieving, and Jesus is watching all this. And again, in verse 32, therefore, when Mary came where Jesus was, she saw him and fell at his feet, saying to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. So again, we had Martha saying it. Now we have Mary saying the same thing, which again makes total sense. You and I would say the same thing if we believe we saw Jesus do these miracles. Here, my brother's sick, and I call for Jesus. He comes 4 days late. He's been in the tomb now 4 days. Of course, the first thing I'm going to say to him, if you had just come sooner, my brother would still be alive. And again, if you have not lived that verse in your life at some point, well, God bless you. That's great. You've been blessed, but chances are your day's coming, because life just comes with those with those challenges. So now they've both said the same thing. So what does Jesus say at this? When Jesus therefore saw her weeping, and the Jews who came with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and was troubled, and said, where have you laid him? They said to him, Lord, come and see. And then the shortest verse of the Bible, if you ever are into Bible trivia, is verse 35 of John 11, where it says, Jesus wept. And I have read all the commentaries on this verse because here's Jesus weeping. We all know the story. He's about to go and do this miraculous raising Lazarus from the dead, and he's weeping. Is he just playing the part, going along with it? I don't think so. I think he's weeping because he does see the suffering going on of these folks. And one commentator said, which I think is probably the best answer, is that he was experiencing death. He was watching these people that he loved struggling through death and and mourning, and death wasn't supposed to be in the plan. That was, that came because of sin, because of Adam. And it just makes sense that Jesus, being the sacrificial lamb and coming to take away the sins of the world, is watching this. The result of sin is death, and he's just watching it, watching their suffering, and he couldn't help but weep, even though the next couple of verses he's going to change it all around. So in verse 36, it says, and so the Jews were saying, behold how he loved him. So even the Jews were seeing this weeping and this mourning that Jesus is going through. And some of them said, and here's a really good point, just like Martha and Mary have to be thinking, could not this man who opened the eyes of him who was blind have kept this man also from dying? I mean, Jesus did all these amazing things. Here's this man that he is, it's like his brother, and he loves him and loves his sisters, and he isn't there to save him. Verse 38, Jesus therefore again, being deeply moved within, came to the tomb. Now it was a cave, and a stone was lying against it. Jesus said, remove the stone. Pretty wild stuff, right? What does Martha say? Of course, Martha, being Martha, the sister of the deceased, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be a stench, for he has been dead for 4 days. And again, you have to love Martha. I'm sure Mary, it doesn't say what Mary says, but Mary's probably like, yeah, do it, yes, but Martha, being the practical Martha she is, she says, hey, it's been 4 days. And you could imagine back in those days, 4 days, especially, I don't know what the season was, but it was probably pretty warm usually there. And so Martha's saying, hey, this is going to be disgusting. What is Martha doing? Martha is being rational, and she's looking at the situation through the only way we can. We use we live this life with five senses, and those five senses demand of us. They compel us to be controlled by them. We see the world that way. We experience everything through those five senses, and of course, those five senses are tied to our heart, to our emotions, and so Martha is saying the right thing here. And how many times in our lives, again, going back to when Martha said, Lord, if you'd only been here, finish the sentence. Well, here's another example. I only see things the way I can see them. This is the only way I can perceive the world. And this bad thing happens, or this terrible tragedy, or this situation that is just so bad, I almost can't comprehend it, and I'm only using my five senses and my emotion and my human intellect to try to understand it. And the Bible usually calls it, the human heart. Don't lean on your own understanding. You'll be lost every time. And here's a perfect example. Martha is using her intellect and her intelligence and her practical thinking, using those five senses to say, Jesus, this is not going to be a good thing if we roll this stone away. And again, isn't that us? That is us so easily when we get in a situation, especially a bad situation. Good situations, well, all our five senses are, firing great, and we're loving it, and our heart feels great, and our mind is taking it all in, and we're all good. But here's a situation where it's so bad, and Jesus has just made it worse by saying, roll the stone away, because that's just disgusting. Maybe Mary, again, it doesn't record. Mary may have been all excited that he's going to raise Lazarus. This is great. But aren't we more like Martha, where we live in the world we live in, a physical world where our five senses demand everything from us. So it's hard when God's doing things to see it, because all we see is the way we can see it. So I love here that Martha says that, because again, I think I can identify with it in too many times in my life where God was doing things, but it surely wasn't in the way I wanted, and it wasn't anything to enjoy. So what happens? We'll pick it up again. Jesus has said, remove the stone. What does Jesus say back to Martha? Did I not say to you, if you believe, you will see the glory of God? And so they removed the stone, and Jesus raised his eyes and said, Father, I thank thee that thou heardest me. Heardest, just my translation here. Um, and I know that thou hearest me always, but because of the people standing around, I said it, that they may believe that thou did send me. So a little bit of theatrics here. This is so interesting. Jesus, of course, has this perfect relationship with his Father, and but he says it out loud for everybody else to hear. So this is one of those examples that we have of God revealing what's going on. And again, all I can do is say personally, there's too many times we don't get to see what's going on. That's why these stories in here are so important, because again, we live in a fallen world that's a physical world, and we can't see the spiritual stuff going on, and our hearts just deceive us, and our emotions destroy us, and we use those five senses. And here's an example where Jesus is making sure everybody hears for their benefit. He doesn't need to say it out loud, but he says it out loud, and I love that it's recorded here. But such a purpose in doing it the way he did it. Why? So that people would believe, not just to raise Lazarus, but that people would believe. And when he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. He who had died came forth, bound hand and foot with wrappings, and his face was wrapped around with a cloth. Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. And of course, the story goes on from there. And again, the reason I love this story is just all those little components in there that I can identify with. It's an amazing story. And wouldn't it be great if Jesus just did this all the time? But he doesn't. Okay. And that's where the trust comes in. That's where, when you go through a period where you say, and I'm sure I'm talking to somebody out there, I know it. Okay. I'm sure of this, that you are saying, Lord, if you'd only been there. If God had been there, you wouldn't be in the situation you're in. These things would not have happened. And I'm here to tell you, if you are a believer, if you've accepted Christ as your Savior, and you are trusting in Him, even through the valley of the shadow of death, even through those dark times, He is there, just like He was here. He waited 2 days. Imagine if if the disciples had told Martha and Mary before he raised Lazarus, "Hey, Martha, we told Jesus that your brother was sick." He waited 2 days before coming here. Okay, um, how would Martha feel then? That, holy cow, wait a minute, he missed getting here to save my brother, and then I find out he just hung back for 2 days. Imagine how that would have gone over. I don't think anybody ever said that. They got to the raising right away, but again, it's just like, well, that doesn't make any sense. A lot of times the things happening don't make sense, and they're not right, and they're not justice. I mean, there's very little justice in this world. I've learned that. um, my family's been through it. We're working on almost 6 years now where evil entered our family in a horrible way. And I tell you what, verses like this, stories like this, they were both a comfort to me and a challenge. You get to the point sometimes in your life where you're suffering, and you have to sweat out some of these verses. What I mean by sweating out, I mean, you've got to dig in, and you've got to decide, this is just text that some guy wrote 2,000 years ago, or this is whatever, and decide, or it's coming from God, and it's for me to know and trust, and let it shape my life, and let it shape my actions. Um, if you haven't sweated through some verses, Romans 8:28 is another one I could stick in here. Um, you know, God works everything for good all things for those that are called by his name and called to his purpose and loved by him. Kind of messed that up a little bit, but you can look it up, Romans 8:28. If you haven't struggled with that verse somewhere in your life, again, you're blessed, but you're probably going to come to a point where you're going to, and that's okay. That's why we have the scriptures, to understand the nature of God and how we're supposed to respond. And so I love the fact that, God, where were you? You weren't here, and now I'm in this situation. That really isn't true. God is there. He has a purpose. And if scripture, if it doesn't do anything, one thing it tries to do for us, if we'll be open to it, is open our world to the spiritual world, and that God operates differently than we do. And there are times, and I wish it was different. There are times I try not to ever say why, because why is such a dangerous question to ask God, because his ways are just so different than ours, and you get caught up in your way of, well, this is how things should be, this is what justice looks like, this is right and wrong, this is the why, and then God messes that all up, and I'm back to trusting the scriptures or thinking my own way. I've said this before. If you're in a bad time right now, please, I mean this sincerely, bad times either draw you away from God or they draw you to God. I totally believe, I've always believed that, and having gone through February 25th of 2020 when evil hit our family, and there were definitely times where I felt it was driving me away from God. I could feel it. I knew it was happening, but he was faithful where I wasn't, and always brought me back. So whoever you are, and I know you're out there, understand, even if you feel far away from God or God's far away from you right now, that's normal. It's okay to feel that way. Okay, every relationship, even human relationships, goes that way, right? That's okay. Just don't stay gone too long, or don't believe he has left you. Get back in the scriptures, just like with Lazarus here, and understand a little bit more the nature of God as we can understand him. We'll never fully understand, right? So anyway, so I wanted to share this. I know my channel is a pet food channel, but it's a unique time where, again, I get a little melancholy this time of year with the holidays, because I know there's so many people suffering. I wish it was the magical time when I was a kid and innocent and everything was, my dad especially made Christmas such a magical time for us kids. But as you get older, the reality of life is there. Still lots of joy, and of course the true meaning of Christmas. Don't miss that. That would be the worst part you could do. But it's okay if you're struggling a little bit. There's a perfect example to hopefully encourage you. I appreciate you being with me. Again, for all of you that know me, that have been on the channel since the beginning, you guys are like friends to me. It's always great to hear from you. And I do really hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving and Christmas, a whole holiday. I will make a video of my decorations. I did a good job again this year. Every year I keep saying, that's it, I'm done. It's too much work, but they're up again. So I'll send that video out. But again, I hope you're all just doing well. Enjoy the season. Don't forget the reason for the season, right? God bless. Take care.